elites and the Immortals. As you can see, you've got Safa playing as France, Master Razim playing as Turkey for the elites. And on the Immortals team, you have Cold Case and Moderator playing as the United Kingdom, and Adorable Chrome playing as Ukraine. Now, the difficulties for France and Turkey in this situation is that the UK and Ukraine between them really have a lockdown on that northern region where you're getting most of the gold on the EU Plus map. The difficulties that they have in turn are that there's a lot of spawn for these sort of French and Turkish allies to take. Now, what you may see is the UK may decide to contest down here for Spain, which would probably be a mistake in this scenario, given that there's a lot of troops to be taking up here. What would be the biggest mistake is really to go into Berlin, because then his troops are mispositioned for here. What France can do is either shore up, try and contest this sort of cash-rich region up here, or he can go and secure some troops around this area. In the east, I think we'll have a similar battle that we usually have. Turkey obviously going out to the Balkans as much as he can, and maybe a little bit of Russia south, whereas the Ukraine will obviously be taking up these sort of northern regions over here. What you might see in this scenario, given that the Ukraine will know that they had this sort of cash rich earlier, is a rush very early into this Balkan region. So we're going to pick this up and see on turn 2 what the expansions are. Remember, turn 1 is all about looking at your opponent, if you have any sort of prior knowledge of them, remembering their expansions, understanding what sort of units they use, what sort of strategies they use, and then really responding in kind to where you think they're going to go and make that reaction. So let's see how turn 2 goes. So as you can see, everyone's gone for their maximum expansion that you can. You've got this Russia South over here, so that's probably indicates that the player over in Turkey is using an imperialist strategy, given that there's no general moving over here. You've also got the sort of normal expansion for Ukraine, so he's leveraging these troops up in this sort of area up here to come back down and face off as much as he can over here. His ally in the west, in Cold Case, has secured the German area. What he may seek to do now is either go north and get some more spawn and cash from this region, or he might even try and get some full Germany over here. Now, Cold Case is a good player. I think that he might have the advantage over Safa over here at the moment, whereas Safa's gone down, obviously thought about what we discussed before with that contention in Spain and sent as many troops as he can with a sort of minimalist sort of Rome taken over here. So really this is a north versus south battle. What the challenge is for France and the Turkish ally is to try and get those troops up now, even perhaps remove some of this bonus from the UK, but it's developing into a nice clan war here. It will really settle now on this turn on what can happen with Ukraine's expansion. If it can react to the Russia South sort of push over here, you might see a late move coming in to take away that if he moves across to Rostov to assault over this way, or even bring some troops back into Turkey. As I said, it's quite a difficult scenario for the French and Turkish allies. It's a better scenario for them than, say, if they pick Germany, because obviously you'd have that 2v1 situation with Ukraine and UK able to press very quickly onto the German area. So we'll pick this up on turn 3 and see where we are, and see how we go on this turn. As you can see, the start of turn 3, as I said, the Ukrainian player is looking to leverage sort of his position over here. He has indeed late moved Volgograd, as you can see, making sure that he's eliminated that threat from Rostov. So that's a loss of 3 units there for Turkey coming across. We're looking around in the Balkans, being kind of secured up, tried to get some walls ongoing. A little bit surprised to see none of this territory up here taken really by Turkey, as that would have been a nice press up into this German area. As you can see for the French player, he's tried after the palace wall to re-wall his sort of space there. If you look on the last turn, if you rewind the video, you'll have seen that the wall was not that wide. So really, it gave Cold Case the opportunity just to place that unit there to make sure that the wall was broken, which is going to make life difficult for the French player, as he now has to think about coming back and defending Paris, whereas really he would have liked to have utilised this Bilbao position here and this stack down in Spain to come up and harass the sort of London area. One of the things that's not in his favour is you can see Cold Case has managed to get his wall up. It's always really important, especially for you, those new guys, on that second turn and on those key turns of reinforcement, and especially like the fourth turn, really every turn, to make sure that you have your opponent's capital wall broken so that they have that option to come back and defend. As you can see there, the scenarios now for the UK are very positive. Whereas for the Paris player, he can't continue to expand, as he must think about a sort of units coming in from Germany, and if there are remaining troops in the UK coming this way. Another intricate thing to notice is that Cold Case has decided to go and take Nantes. Now, a lot of players will leave a unit in Nantes so that if there are any reinforcements around this sort of area, they can use Nantes as the port to come round to the UK up here. As I said in a previous video, these key ports of Amsterdam, Hamburg, Nantes, Bordeaux and Bilbao down here really are the opportunity to come in and attack the UK. If you hold all of these, or at least prevent with smart walls or turn blocks or anything like that, then it really gives the UK great advantage being isolated on that island to be able to come out and defend there. So, you know, even if Cold Case doesn't want to go for that rush into Paris now, he can continue to think about expanding himself and taking more territories, perhaps up in Norway, or even securing that full German bonus, knowing that he's well protected on this side. The Ukrainian ally for Cold Case here has done really well as well. The only thing I would suggest is that he gets this full bonus in Russia Central, so he's not relying so much on the sort of allies' motivations there. It does look like it's perhaps an Iron Fist strategy that's being played here, simply because of the 8 that's been left in Rome. However, I may be wrong in the French notion on that moment. What we can see as well is the only real threat, the smartest thing that Turkey has done is taking this port of Odessa here, because if you're not playing a strategy like Sky Menace, it is really the only outlet for these troops in the central area to come down and take out Turkey. Conversely, if you look at Istanbul, he's made sure that that is well protected so that he gives himself that outlet to come up into the Ukraine and attack that area. So we've got 30 seconds left on the turn. We're going to pause the video here and just wait and see what happens, and we'll pick this up on the beginning of turn 4. Okay, so beginning of turn 4, we're going to have a look at the western situation first. As I said, because of that freedom with the wall being up, it's really allowed Cold Case to come up here, take some more spawn, regenerate himself in Germany there, and make sure that he's in a secure position to fight this threat from the French player here. He's also managed, as I said, to locate and secure himself all of these key ports. Hamburg's nicely walled, Amsterdam's nicely walled. He still holds Nantes and walled up Bordeaux, I believe, there to make sure that his enemy really has no access apart from this one loose transport here to come into the UK. So really strong position for the UK player in this instance, as he's got enough troops to come back and defend and really focus on holding these key ports in that area. Conversely, the French players opted, as I said, because his wall was not formed correctly, he had to go back and defend in case there was a rush coming in. Now, if he had a bit of prior knowledge of his player, he might have realised that Cold Case is not really a player that's going to rush in, and is going to make sure he grinds down his enemy in that war of attrition over there. If you look on the other sort of side over here, you've got the Ukrainian player who's continued to disband, still hasn't taken his Russia Central, and has really tried to consolidate his position. If we look at the true unit counts in a minute, it may see that he's a little bit down on units, depending on what the Turkish player does. He has obviously recognised that he needed to go back and get Odessa. I believe it is walled by the Turkish player there, which has prevented that 9 units from going back and defending, or even coming down and taking some Turkish cities. So at the moment it's looking like on the Western battle, the UK player from the Immortals is winning the battle, whereas over here the Turkish player is in a solid position, protecting his areas over here. The only real outlet that he has open is that threat for coming down here in Romania. Other than that, he's in a strong position. So let's take a look at the unit counts before we go into the reinforcement turn. You've got Master Razim on 82 and Adorable Chrome on 91. So a slight advantage for Ukraine. I was wrong there. And then you've got France, you've got 72 and Cold Case with 77. That said, I do think that the UK is in a better position despite the small units. Still a very evenly battled clan war. Let's see what happens at the beginning of turn 5. Remember, that is reinforcement turn. So an opportunity really to maximise their positions. I think that the gold will start to come into play now, as you can see all of the rich areas, with bar France, which has really been taken out, that full country bonus, is in the favour of the Immortals up here and their dominance in that northern region. So let's pick this up on turn 5, see what happens. They might see some rushes this turn, given that it is the turn before reinforcements, so expect a lot of battles. So as you can see, turn 5, as I said on turn 4, it is the right turn if you're in a dangerous position to attempt a rush like this. It has looked like it's worked out for the Turkish player in terms of taking Kiev. He's got 29 in there. It's now dependent really on how many units the Ukraine player here can muster to come back and take out that general in there. Although, to be fair, he's still got the full reinforcements in Turkey, so it'll be very, very hard to take back some units there. What he might be better doing is waiting a few turns, bringing his troops forward and making some smart walls around here to attempt to get that position back. It looked like he'd taken a risk. He could have really defended. Perhaps it's been turn blocked over here to make sure that he couldn't get his general back and defend, as that would have been key to that battle. if we look at the chat over here, I think that's what they are saying in terms of there was a TB on Lithuania over here where the general is to make sure he couldn't get back. Now that general bonus is really important when you are defending. The key thing you'll see in a lot of level games, as you can see over here in the western region, is that on that turn they've really done the most to protect their capitals and make sure that they are still in play for the next turn. It's still quite a good battle over in the west, however it's still in the advantage of the UK player over here, as he has all the cash-rich regions and is able to utilise all of his spawn both in the UK and Germany, and still holds that access route down here in Bilbao to prevent these Spanish troops or even a link from Italy coming through this route and up to the UK. This may turn out to be a very west versus east battle. It might be as quick in how much damage the Ukrainian player can do to the Turkish player before the player over here in the UK, Cold Case, can really defeat the French player. He's still in a strong position. There's a lot of troops that he can utilise to get back, but we'll pick it up on turn 6 and see what happens with this clan war. So here we are, beginning of turn 6. As you can see, there has been a recap attempt. Maybe a little bit too early there. He could have probably got some more units in if he'd waited a turn. As you can see, the Turkish player really has had to take the risk in leaving all of his areas zero to make sure that he's got the troops in there for that defense of Kiev. Now, it's going to be really hard without a general now to recap for the player over in Ukraine. So what he may be best doing is preventing these sort of cash-rich areas from being taken quite quickly from the Turkish player, to give himself and his ally over here quite a chance. Now, what the French player is doing here, as you can see, is really just pumping in to the Paris to make sure that he's well protected, and it's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of reinforcements for the UK player to come down and take out the French player here. It's a bit of a turn up, if I must say, because I think they were in a very strong position in the west before obviously getting capped over here in probably an attempt to defend too many areas at once, whereas he really should have conciliated his position and prevented that rush. The Turkish player, depending on what his ally is doing, is able now to sweep up, make sure that that's taken, and then really start pressing these areas in the north. There is still an opportunity for Cold Case. He has just lost his country bonus, however I think he's gathered enough money now to start pressing in and utilising that area. What his difficulty will be now is making sure that this massive troop count that is available in the Balkans doesn't become too much of a problem on his area over here. You may see this clan war go in the favour either way, depending on what happens this turn. I don't think there are enough troops here to make a solid rush on the Paris player, but what he can do is make sure that he's still eliminating that threat to the UK, to give himself the option of expanding out and taking the risk to go and face off really versus this Turkish player. We'll pick it up on turn 7. I think that rush has probably won the game. A little bit of naivety perhaps on the half of Adorable Chrome there in not defending that turn before reinforcements with enough units to make do. He's still not taken really any sort of a full country bonus over here or full country bonus in Finland that would have really given him the opportunity to get those extra troops in, perhaps these 4 or 5 troops that may have made a difference in terms of the recap attempt, or even being able to pump more troops into the Ukraine area for that turn. Now it really does look favourable in the east. In the west, we've got still a key battle. We've got a full Germany. That's a lot of money that Chrome can utilise. It's just dependent on how many units that he has left over. So let's have a look at the unit counts. We've got Master Razim, who's got 57 units. Obviously took a big hit on that recap attempt. And we've got Chrome with 63 units. So whilst he's still in more units position, that general will come into play over here. In the west, we have Cold Case on 91 units and Safa on 101. So you can see really where he's had to come over here and start contesting this area, seeing that his ally is almost deceased. He's losing ground in terms of troops. Still holds the advantage in numbers and money, but let's see how this goes. I think if the Amsterdam was taken, that would be quite a key move for France, and obviously trying to get back his areas that are lost down here. So we've got 33 seconds left on the turn. We'll just pause the video and we'll pick it up on turn 7. So turn 7, a great recap there by Ukraine on his capital. He's only managed to recap by 5 units, but he's obviously managed to recap, which puts him in a strong position now, especially with Cold Case coming down, to defeat the Turkish player, who probably won't have any reinforcements left, given the attempt really to go into the Ukraine there. So a real markup there. Obviously it's difficult to recap in that situation, but he's managed to do it. And now, as you can see, the picture's quite changed so that he's in a dominating position. He will be able to utilise the troops, especially in Lviv, Kharkiv, and I can't say this word, but that city there, to make sure that he's going back. He's still got his outlet going down there to Turkey. So, you know, a bit of a difficult one for Turkey. That can swing both ways depending on the roles. You know, he may have been able to survive by 1 or 2 units, but really, where he's had to pump a lot of units in there, it may be a good game for him. Whereas on the other side, it's a bit of a nice aggressive play here by the French player to try and come up and get those access points of which he's gone back. He's taken the risk to come out and defend this sort of area. However, Cold Case may consider coming in for a rush now with those units to try and shore up that area and make sure that his allies got enough position to come back. So a massive swing in this game from what was happening before. As you can see, it's you know, a difficult scenario for both players in this sort of area over here. The Turkish player, I'm sure, will be feeling very gutted by that move. But we'll see. It's still on a knife edge. I think it's very much now dependent on what happens on this turn and in the units here. If France doesn't really try and consolidate his position and allow his move to try and recap or something like that, then it's a good game really over for them, given the amount of money that will now be stored by these guys. Cold Case may consider a rush, or he may just anticipate a late move or a rush onto London and not really try to go anywhere, knowing that his ally is now in a good position. So we'll pick it up on turn 8 and see what happens. So we are to start of turn 8. As you can see, France went for that rush on the UK there. And a solid defence by Cold Case. He's obviously left his units in there, knowing that he's going to make that move, being able to regather his ground here. So it really is probably a good game here for the Immortals. Looking very strong, especially Cold Case here in the UK versus France. I think France made the right move. He had to really attempt something, knowing what position his ally was in. As you can see, he's just left the game there. So it's a good game over here. So this game really, if we summarise it, was looking in the West, was limiting the opportunities for the French player to come in and take out some of that key areas, whilst expanding and making sure that he's solid in those northern regions. I think that money aspect really allowed the Ukraine player to recap. As we said at the beginning, they had quite a lock on the game over here as Master Razim leaves. Had a lock on the money that's allowed that recap. If you don't have the money to get those troops built, then you're never going to stand that chance of recapping. So a good performance here. I think it was you know, quite a topsy-turvy game. A couple of nice rushes going on there. Well played on all sides. However, the victory on this one goes to the Immortals.